the equivalent. I was gonna say Brian.
No. Let's not even do it. Let's not do it. Let's not even go there. Oh dear.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? How's it going?
I'm good. And the better for you being here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. Fantastic.
No, thank you. If you're listening and not watching, because we're on YouTube actually, so this episode is going to be on YouTube. So go over to YouTube. You're listening to Chat with Nat with me, Natasha. My friends call me Nat, so you can too. And drum roll, I need to have those. You know, like when you listen to podcasts and they've got the
the sliders.
So I've got here a really, really special guest. And some of you will be familiar with him because he's done a lot of heavy lifting on here. I've got here Brian Lunga, who is, I know he's really humble about the stuff that he does, but Brian does a lot of things, and he's a former political editor for the Southern African Times, and he's a political commentator. I've seen him on, are you on Al Jazeera, right?
There's something like that.
Hey! And I was like, I remember I showed my aunt, I was like, so you're talking about Haiti. I said, eh?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh yeah, we've got here, Chief, whatever, Brian Lunga. So Brian, please tell us what's happening with. I said, yes.
Listen, the Caribbean is part of the African diaspora, so it works.
Absolutely,
it works.
absolutely. So yes, we've got Brian here, and like I said, some of you will remember that Brian did some episodes where we were recapping the stuff that was happening in the African continent, and when we're in our experimenting phase for Chat with Nat. And I think I want to publicly say thank you, because I feel like what happened, I was going through the going through, right? And Brian literally was like, Natasha, don't worry, I will do this for you. And people really loved it. I was going to say that one of our highest episodes was the one where you talk about Egypt, what was going on in Egypt, whatever at the time. So people really, really, really enjoyed it. And that's why I really want to have you come on. Don't worry, listen, when the podcast grows, don't worry, you are a stakeholder.
Better have those shares ready.
Yes, you are a shareholder. So I really want to sort of like continue sort of like having those kind of political current affairs conversations. But as you guys know, sometimes I do the episode solo. So I've been kind of holding back talking about some of these, for Brian to be here. And we've got Brian today. Hello.
Hello, Natasha. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
It's finally good to actually do a proper podcast together.
Yes.
I think we've done 1-2 beats here and there, but to actually...
And the Trump one as well, that was good. It's like you came through. And that was interesting, because I was so shocked. Like, how are you feeling about Trump coming?
I mean, it's to be expected, right?
Yeah.
Because where we are, I think globally, socially and economically, we're in such a bind that it's more than expected that conservatism, and I put it with very strong quotation, conservatism is growing.
Yeah.
So this is to be expected.
Yeah.
And I even predict that over the next 5 to 10 years, you'll find that across Europe, some parts of the Americas, we will see a lot more conservative parties having a stronger say. Now, whether they come in and become prime ministers, presidents, or have a majority in parliaments, that's a whole different case.
Yeah.
But in the concept of them having a stronger say, that's something that will happen. Conservatism is growing, and it will also continue to grow in Africa as we know it. And it will also be shaped by the happenings of the global South as well. So I think the next 5 to 10 years will be very interesting politically and socially and economically right across the globe.
Yeah, I mean, so let's get into it, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about was Elon Musk, right? Yeah. Our African brother.
The Zulu man.
Yeah, just the whole Elon his influence over the American elections,
Yeah.
and now he's trying to influence what's happening in the UK. Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot that we can talk, but I really kind of wanted to get your views on just every and anything Elon Musk and the politics of it. Yeah.
I think there's two parts to this. The first part is that this is not new.
Yeah.
Politically, every politician right across the globe has pondered and has been, to a certain extent, I wouldn't say controlled, but has had a lot of influence from your billionaire,
Yeah.
your billionaire businessman
Yeah.
within their own context, be it in Nigeria, be it in Tanzania, be it in Swaziland, wherever the case is.
Yeah.
Swatini, wherever the case is, right?
Yeah.
It's not new. What's new now, which is the second part of it, which is very interesting, is that we are now in a position where this billionaire actually speaks out.
God.
And some of the things he speaks about are very controversial, to say the least. So that's what makes it exciting and different, exciting, again, quotations. When you're watching, it's exciting. It's very new to us.
Yeah.
And we don't understand it wholly. But the first part, I think, is of critical importance.
Yeah.
That this is not new. Billionaire businessmen have always been behind every major political party that.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're sort of like seeing behind the veil, right?
Pretty
like
much.
What's happening. But also, so the whole Elon Musk thing, right? I don't know if you saw, Mac G, podcast and chill. Mac G, the South African podcast.
But I didn't quite catch that.
Okay,
episode.
because he had an episode with Elon Musk's dad.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought it was interesting because Elon Musk's dad, they've got wealth, right? He's got a mine and all this sort of stuff. And he was talking about, he was friends, or maybe friends is too strong a word, but was it P.W. Botha? And clearly, like, his dad or maybe his parents were sort of part of the political class in some way. And even like when we were speaking to Mac G, I think he's got a collection of cars, and one of the cars, so Mac G was like, "Oh, this car," and then he was like, "Oh yeah, no, it's Cyril Ramaphosa's car or whatever that maybe he sold to him or gave to him. I don't know." So in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is interesting because clearly you already come from a family that had to kind of navigate, that knows to, I don't know, attach itself to the political class in some way. And then you've managed to, it's almost inspiring in some way. It's like you've managed to go to America, a country that seemingly, well, I guess his mom is Canadian, right? Canadian roots, right? And then, no one can take away from his intellect and whatever, right? And then now you are literally running the shot. And there's so many things on my mind. But another thing that I really want to say before I forget is I'm looking and listening at at everything, and I'm thinking, Elon Musk is at his core. He is, forgive me, guys, he's a white South African. And you have to be, and guys, you have to be Southern African to understand why that is important, because the brand of racism and colonialism by white Southern Africans, Rhodesians, being part of them, who then went to South Africa and now identify as white South Africans. That brand is some of the worst in the world.
And some of them have moved to Australia, and it's telling in parts.
Before they moved to Australia, some of them moved to the UK and they've gone back to South Africa.
Yeah, because they couldn't.
And they've gone back to Zimbabwe because they couldn't hack it.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. I think that's important to frame, because I'm like, people are missing, the world is missing this really important context, that these are some of the again, not everyone, all the caveats in the world. Some of the worst groups of people you will come across. I'm so sorry.
I think there's also a part that, you know, if we also take a slight detour from that angle, the other part that we can look at is the fact that he is playing on to something. There's something Elon Musk is playing on to. And in my opinion, it's to do with business. Full stop. The way I see Elon's family is I see them as the Kardashians of politics. They just latch on to anything as long as it makes them money along the way. It doesn't matter. And the more controversial it is, the better.
Yeah.
So we'll find that all this will do is just grow his brand, it will grow his product.
Yeah.
And obviously he wants to, before all of this happened, he was already going through this whole, look at what I have. I've got the new robots coming up. I've got this coming out. I've got this coming out. Driverless taxis. So let's not make no mistakes that all of this controversialness, you know, whether it's racially motivated, conservative motivated, whatever motivation you think, the central part and the biggest motivation of it all is business related, right? This is the guy now in Southern African terms, or in African terms, we speak of tenders.
Tenderpreneur.
Yeah, he's a tender man, right? This is when we speak of that. This is when now you realize that he will start having stakes in certain things and certain little bits, where some certain states that maybe have been blocking, let's say if it's a driverless taxi happening, these things will start opening up a little bit more. All those little nuances will start changing and the landscape will start benefiting him much more. So all of this is to promote the Elon brand. And the more controversial, the better. Because there's this really right conservativeness that nowadays, as I say, is growing. So what better way to tap into it than now?
Exactly. And it was interesting to me because I don't know if you saw sort of like the recent discourse online about I think they call them the H1B1 visas. These are the sort of like employment visas that are given to, you know, technical and people in specialist fields. So a lot of them like engineers, coding and that sort of world. I'm not sure where it started, right? Because obviously the marker movement is all sort of like anti-immigration. And Elon really came out strong, like, no, we need these visas. I think he possibly was on that visa at some point. And then Vivek Ramaswamy, I like the way Americans are like Vivek Ramaswamy, came out and then started saying, no, it's, you know, it's basically did the whole like, no, these people come and they're good immigrants. They work hard and, you know, they don't complain and they don't want some of the trimmings that you guys want. And it's the way that you raise your kids. And literally then you could see like the whole marker movement was like, oh my God, Elon and Vivek, you're Indian and you are African. So it was interesting to kind of see because I think it lends to your point that it's about business, right? Couldn't care less about just some of the real things that, you know, the real people who support Trump or these conservative movements kind of care about, even like in the UK, right? With him saying reform and all that. And the whole then unearthing, okay, what happened with the gangs and whatever, right? But they don't really care about people that are impacted. They just care about, okay, how can we create countries that are deregulated, that allow us to do whatever we want to do, where we can make the most money. But I don't think it will hold for long because you can't be a billionaire and also want to be the main character. You can, but not so loud.
But that's America. That's America in a nutshell. So you can. America has been that from the get-go. If you really look into America fully, top to bottom, it's been that. It's been that. Right now, we talk of the richest sports franchise in the world is the Dallas Cowboys, owned by Jones. and he has star X Factor character. He walks into a room, everyone's like, oh,
is this
Jones
Jerry
is here.
Jones?
Yeah.
Oh my
Jerry
God,
Jones
I
is here.
had to show that I know.
Jerry Jones is here.
Yeah.
And they're all like that. Billionaire owners of all these sports teams right across baseball, American football, all the way into basketball.
Yeah.
So America has always been about the star factor.
Yeah.
It's always about, who can we put up there as the poster boy? Elon now is coming back he's come up as a poster boy. And you speak about the whole visa thing. It's very interesting, really, because where it's like the slight nuances and differences where they start retracting their statements is because when you look at in the UK, for example, if you don't have any legal status, you can't work. Full stop. I mean, you can, but obviously you're going through a lot of hoops and all that. Whereas in the States, if you don't have legal status, you can still work.
Yeah.
You can find a job.
Yeah.
You work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And this has been benefiting the people like Musk a lot.
Yeah.
Because everything they're doing, they're finding very cheap labor to do things. So if you want someone to clear out some of the rubble before the rocket is launched, most of it's people that are on very, very low wages.
Yeah.
And some might be undocumented immigrants. They can do that in America. So this is why they retract those statements very quickly when it starts coming into the whole visa. No, but there's, trust me, there's good immigrants.
Yeah.
It's just those other ones.
Yeah.
Which other ones? Oh yeah, those 3 ones that committed a crime. Yeah, those are the problematic ones. But you are a very good one.
you're the good immigrant. No. It's and I think when you talk about the growings of like conservatism, that's happening, America, Europe. I don't know. Like, it just makes me think. Okay, so we've probably been like in the UK for years, right? But I don't know. I kind of and I how do I say this? There is a feeling that I'm kind of like, you know what? This is becoming such an unsafe place for immigrants. And what do we do about this, right? So what do we actually do about the state of home, wherever home is for people? So in our case, it's Zimbabwe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, I have completely I don't pay attention to Zimbabwean politics because it was just too stressful. I have, and maybe this is wrong. Like, I just see it as like this is hopeless. Like, I just think it's hopeless. So yeah, I don't know. Do you think? Yeah, I'm trying to find a way to kind of pivot to Zim, Southern Africa, closer to home. Is anything that's happening in the world, relevant to Southern Africa?
100%.
Mm-hmm.
It's very relevant because we already come, very strong quotation marks, we already come from very conservative countries. In general, almost all the African countries, in the very general sense, are conservative, practicing countries. This is why even when you loosely really look at it very closely, most of the parties, especially liberation parties that gained independence, that helped the countries gain independence, are very aligned with the Conservative Party here than the Labour Party.
Oh, yeah.
When you really start looking into the finer lines, they're very close friends. This is why relationships, when the Labour Party is in power, relationships with Africa are very different than when the Conservative Party is in power. They're a bit more pally-pally, a bit more friendly to the African continent in general. And some of the change that we'll start seeing now over the next few years is that with Africa trying to accelerate its growth and a very huge growing middle class population, their demands will start changing. We'll change from bread and butter issues to actually service delivery. And when we start talking about service delivery, it means that we're also now growing a huge class of millionaires, billionaires. And then that sort of star factor X factor power that you see in America also starts becoming a thing. So there's a lot that's going to happen over the next few years within that space. And it's just to see how we will deal with it as a continent, because we are heading in the right direction in terms of growth economically.
You reckon?
100%.
Okay.
There's huge growth right across most African countries. Botswana is doing very well. South African economy is growing, and most of it is to do with trade that they're working with sort of America and the Europe and the UK.
Okay.
Nigerian economy, as much as it has stalled a bit,
Yeah.
but in the context of over the past 5-10 years, it has grown.
Okay.
Right? Growth, 0.05% is growth.
Yeah.
So everyone, I don't have the figures with me right now, but
Yeah.
growth is growth in any case, especially when we take into context of where globally, where economically growth has been very hard to come by. African economies have grown slightly more than European and American economy. And some of it is to do with the fact that there's a bit of production happening there, raw materials leaving Africa and all that sort of thing. That's what's helping the movement all in all. It's very difficult because one thing that's going to happen is dependency. The dependence on Africa is also going to grow because there's only so much in terms of trade between Africa, Europe, and Americas. It's going to grow. There's so much that can be grown across Europe. There's so much that can be mined across Europe.
Yeah.
It's even now when we were talking about when you talk about the UK, over the past few days we've been experiencing some of the harshest temperatures in almost a decade.
Yeah.
And one thing that's happened is that our gas reserves are I think about a week is left. Right?
Really?
Yeah, there's a week left of gas reserves in the country.
Has that been in the news?
Yes.
Okay.
But I mean, they'll replenish it at some point. That's obviously. But that's also to do with those conflicts, Russia and Ukraine conflict. It's reducing the amount of gas coming into the country. So now what's the alternative? Where can you find the next biggest gas reserves? All those little things will start playing a part into the whole thing. And then obviously Ukraine was a very huge exporter of things like wheat and maize and corn and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So now you need to find it somewhere.
Yeah.
So this is where these economies now start growing and they'll start leveraging that. And we'll start having a stronger say in some of these tables that we sit in. But for us to have that stronger say, we need leaders that can be respected.
See, that's where I was gonna go, right? That's where I was gonna go. And interesting, you mentioned Botswana, right? And I kind of wanted to get your take. The recent elections in Botswana, how does that impact the rest of Southern Africa? And considering, like we're talking about the liberation parties, obviously South Africa as well. Yeah. It's now in a government of national unity. I mean, do they officially call it a government of national unity?
I mean, they're calling it government of national unity, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. That's a coalition. It's not a national unity government.
Yeah.
Because that's just a coalition. It's two parties, ANC and DA, and a few other fringe parties that have come together to create a majority.
Yeah.
Full stop. It's not a coalition by any means.
But what the events that happened in South Africa, right? So that change and Botswana, how do you think it impacts Mozambique? Mozambique had elections,
Speak of
right?
Mozambique right now, people are dying in Mozambique, unfortunately, because they're being killed by security forces. I think 2 were shot a couple of days ago during a protest.
Yeah.
They opened fire at them because they're saying they don't want the current president. They want the alternative party to come into play.
Yeah.
So people want change. People want something different.
Yeah.
I think people within Southern Africa are tired of lack of service delivery. I think, and that's the biggest point: service delivery.
Yeah.
That's what people are tired of. That they're not getting the services they need, from basic hospital care, basic water needs, basic electricity needs. Almost across Southern Africa, there's load shedding everywhere. Right across Southern Africa of some form.
Yeah.
I think Botswana is probably the most consistent one. But generally, there's load shedding of electricity.
Yeah.
In South Africa, Zimbabwe, Mozambique is there. It's there in Zambia. It's there in Angola. Yeah. It's there a bit in Namibia.
How is Zambia doing?
Zambia is growing very well, actually.
Yeah.
They're one of the better growing economies with their current leaders because they're a bit more progressive. They're looking to grow infrastructure. They're looking to actually grow their economy. Yeah. I went to Zambia 2000. I was still pretty young. 2000 and
Don't age yourself because,
2005, I went into Zambia and I was shocked to find a man in the middle of Lusaka with a hammer grinding granite in the middle of the street.
Okay.
And it was like a normal thing. And I was like, wow. In these dusty roads, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
You go to Lusaka now, it's a totally different place.
And isn't that kind of what's happening in Zim? Well, maybe not to that extent.
At that point, because at that point I was comparing with Zim, and Zim looks so much better. Oh my goodness, what are these guys doing?
But Zim
and
now,
then it's gone the opposite way. Lusaka has grown economically, and those problems not problems, but those things that I was seeing, all of a sudden you don't see them anymore. There's better roads, better infrastructure. They've run away from the US dollar, and they're really trading with the kwacha a lot more, and they're using it a lot more in terms of global trade and regional trade rather.
So what about our dear Zim? Like, is there any hope? Because when are the next elections? Because it was 2023, 2028, right?
Something like 2028, something like that.
There's no opposition to speak of.
In a political sense, you've got to respect ZANU-PF in a political sense.
Oh yeah, I mean they
know how to burn everything down.
Absolutely. And for me, it's just like I just wish there was a way that, like, the service delivery thing, right? At least let them be encouraged, to try and, So I think I'll say this. You're not saying it. I'm saying, like, for me, it's just like, okay, we know that you guys are stealing and looting and everything, but try, right? Libraries, hospitals, just try, right? I know someone shared like a spreadsheet of like, Wicknell, and we always get these characters that just come from nowhere and like are like the richest people, and you're like, okay. They're like, Wicknell does so much good, and sort of like showed all the things that he's done. And it's like Hilux, Toyota Hilux. And I'm thinking, okay, great. Listen, if someone came to me and said, here's a Range Rover, listen, I don't know. I may take it.
You are the problems.
No, listen, I may take it.
It's the people that accept it that are problematic. But you guys are the problems.
But at least for me, it would be like, okay, at least if it was like, these machines, these radiography, MRI machines, like X amount were done. So I think that is what is frustrating to me. And when you look at, government accounts that they'll celebrate like, 20-meter stretch of road has been fixed. And you're like, okay. So for me, I'm just like, I just hope that in some way, the stuff that's happening around Southern Africa has an unintended positive impact on them. I don't know.
In old Roman times, they used to say if you throw bread at them or jump at the bread and then forget everything else, and they forget how rich you are as the rulers and the leaders.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
It's not a new template. It's not a new playbook.
Yeah.
This has been happening for hundreds and thousands of years.
Yeah.
But I'll say this: I've never in my entire existence seen a country that's very obsessed with cars. Like Zim.
That's true.
It's such an obsession with cars.
That's
true. To the point that you find people sleeping on a mattress, but it's got the latest Range Rover.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, brother, come on. Come on, let's do other things. I've never understood it because for me, maybe I have been colonized a little bit more than I care to accept. Because the first thing I think is a car is a depreciating asset.
Yep.
The second I get into that car and drive off from wherever I've bought it from, drive home, and if I decide to change my mind an hour later and drive back, you've probably lost 2,000 to 5,000 pounds.
Yeah, no, I
So
completely
I
agree.
don't see, and again, it's a huge burden because in a country that doesn't have the greatest roads, like for example, right now driving from Bulawayo to Victoria Falls, it's one of the worst stretches of road you can ever think of.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, if your tire burst, if you had an issue with your shock absorbers, if you've been given a car as a charity case, how are you going to fix that?
Yep.
I
Exactly.
don't know. Maybe I'm
You're
too
not
practical
wrong.
about it. Because
No,
like,
you're
how
not
you going to
wrong.
fix that then? Like, are you
No.
just going to have a car and just go, I was gifted a
No.
car. It doesn't work right. I guess even if you look back in the day, we had
Yeah.
uncles and grandparents like, you know,
No,
before I left that job,
yeah.
they gave me a nice little Renault. You know that them Rixie Tex Renaults back in the day. They gave me one of them ones. I start saving and enjoying when I doesn't. Them 4 Peugeots, they're parked. It doesn't work anymore. But what a machine this was. I'm like, bro, you're gonna celebrate this can that's been sitting here for 20 years. Come on.
No, listen, I am in complete agreement. I just think our priorities are not right. And I find that it translates to when people come here as well. Like you'll find them driving 2024. And I'm like,
bro, buy a house. I don't want to be offensive to anybody, but I'll say my take is that I've always truly believed poverty of the mind is a thing. I think they even what do they call it? It's Lobiang or something.
Yeah.
That is the thing. Like I think poverty of the mind is a thing because when we speak of poverty of the mind, we're saying everything else around you doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
As long as you have ABC to show your status and your wealth.
Yeah.
Yet, really and truly, you've got to think about the basic necessities. Are they being met or not?
Yeah.
And that status and wealth that you're trying to show to everybody, are you actually in a situation where you can maintain it yourself without anyone looking or anyone appraising you for it or whatever? Yeah. Can you just maintain it?
Yeah.
That's all that matters. And I think when you grow up in a country of relative poverty, as much as people don't like admitting this, it's the truth. Economically and GDPR wise, it's a country that is relatively poor. And when you grow up in that situation, you always want to prove you've made it when you get some form of balance in your pocket.
Yeah.
Yet the proof should never be you made it. The proof is how comfortable and happy are you.
Yeah.
That's the proof of that you're okay. You've made it out of that situation.
Yeah.
And this is why we're obsessed with cars, right? It's the status of I want to look like. I want to tell you, I've been born now. When I get there, them guys. When I get there, which is the worst mentality. And I guess there's a lot you can cover with that, right? But I just think sometimes we need to shy away from being a society that's worried about how we look.
Yep.
But rather be in a position where we actually help each other. Sometimes I'm very envious of the Asian communities because of how they look after each other. It's phenomenal.
The communal element.
They look after each other so well to the point that if I have a shop and you want to get a leg up, everybody's going to come and work in my shop. Yeah. We all get a leg up. Right? Because you're working there now, it means I can go off and start another shop somewhere. Yeah. And someone else will come work there. Then I go and start another shop. Yeah. And then eventually you take over that shop. It's now your shop. Yeah. And then that's just how it should be. Yeah. But we're so worried about competition, how we look amongst each other. Some can say you go back into, you can go back into colonization. That's what it did. It divided us so much, blah, blah, blah. But I'm saying we're free now, brother. We're free. It's okay to actually look up to each other now. Yeah. But I digress. I think I'm going way too far with it.
No, you're not. And I think we need to sort of like talk about this in another episode.
Yeah.
Because I think everything that's happening around us now is destroying and pulling down individualism.
Yeah.
Even if we're not accepting it, right? Even if you think about what's happening in LA with the fires, all these like natural disasters, all these things that are happening that are forcing people to lean into community or making it apparent that you need community, right, in some way. But I think we're still kind of fighting it because we're still like, no, no, no. But I think there's certain things that are just happening in these times that are like, okay, no.
But that's capitalism.
Yeah.
It's capitalism 101 because
Yeah.
capitalism tells you that it's all about you. It's all about you making it. You can make it. You can be one of us. You can be great.
Yeah.
And then it takes away the sense of community away from us.
Yeah.
And eventually, if you think even now on how capitalism says you should work so hard to achieve your dream.
Yeah.
And then you go for 12-hour shift. At what point do you have time to actually be with your community?
Yeah.
Whereas when you really break it down, it's about community at the end of the day. It's about being with your family, your friends.
Yeah.
And if I'm working 6 hours a day, then I go and chill out with my friends for 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
It brings up that sense of community. And it's getting to a point now that when I think now when we look at kids, people are like, these days kids don't listen. No, it's not that kids don't listen. Kids have always been kids. It's just that now they feel they can get away with things a lot more because we are working a lot more.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. And they only have like one or two adults, like the parents who are like the main voices, the main adults, right? And it shouldn't be the case. It should be a whole village.
And even with that, we're saying those two adults that are the parents at home, sometimes you're only seeing each other for 1 hour a day, 1 hour maximum in a week.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying the once a day or whatever. I'm saying totally accumulated time could be an hour.
Yeah.
Because if I'm working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., it means when I leave, you're getting ready to go to school, seeing each other for 10, 15 minutes, having our breakfast, whatever the case.
Yeah.
I don't see you throughout the day. When I come back 7 p.m. from work, whatever. I don't know what
you're getting
people
home
do after
like
work.
at 8.
Yeah, getting home at
8.
8, half 8.
Yeah.
Kid is about to go to bed.
Yeah.
You're seeing each other for 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the cycle, repeat, rinse, repeat for a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Come Saturday, you don't want to chill out. You want to go to sleep because you're tired because you've been working so hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So most of it, is to do with the community aspect is taken away, to do with capitalism being so in front of everything we're doing.
Yeah.
And again, economically, things are not great globally.
Yeah.
So it gets to a point where people just want to be hustling, working hard. You're doing this. Then we forget that at the end of the day, it's about sense of community and the sense of everything else.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. So I think we'll bring this episode to a close.
Oh, man.
No.
Really?
Do you know what that means, though? Do you know what that means, though?
Yeah.
You have to come back.
Oh, anytime. Anytime. I'm ready.
It means you have to come back. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, we could talk forever, right?
100%. And I'm sure we went into a lot of digressed a lot because I did anyhow.
No, it made sense. It made sense, and I think we definitely need to speak about the whole sort of like community, capitalism, individualism, and all that stuff. But
I make a prediction now before we close.
Yes, please.
That in the next 15 years, capitalism will almost be non-existent.
That's bold.
I say, let me say 20 years. Let me give it an extra 5 years.
Where? Across, like...
Globally.
Ooh.
There's only so much people can take.
Ooh.
There's only so much people can take. And we're already starting to see it. Look at these kids now. You tell them work hard. They're like, are you crazy? Working hard for what? I can work 3 hours a day and I'll be sorted. And the growth of social media doesn't help. Because then people say, I can just go and create content on YouTube and make a bit more money. Or at least you're busy slaving away. So I think capitalism as we know it, let me rephrase that. Capitalism as we know it in the next 20 years will be very different from what it is now. Okay. Woo! You heard it here first. In 2040, you'd be like, ooh, Brian predicted this in 2025. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay. Ooh, what do you guys think? Let us know. Yeah, guys, we've talked about a lot. So let us know what you guys think. Yeah. I have a thought about this. So you definitely have to come back. No,
right?
100%.
Because we have to keep talking about
Anytime,
this.
just let me know.
So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. You've been listening to Chat with Nat with me, Natasha, and we have had here Brian Lunga, and I'll share his details if on the more info wherever you're listening or watching. Make sure to rate the episode 5 stars. And just let us know what you guys think. And thank you so much.